Welcome to the Podium Proof F1 podcast. My name is Frank Alessi.
I'm David Alessi.
All right, another race, another Max Verstappen victory. Max dominated down in Australia, although at least he did have to work for this one for about the first 10 laps due to a poor start.
That's about all he had to work for.
So, man, maybe it's one of those things that he just makes it look so effortless.
Mm-hmm.
Not unlike when, a few years ago, whenever Hamilton was just winning everything. They just make it look so easy when, clearly it's not.
It's not.
It is, but it is.
But it's still not, right? But on their level, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. To me, it almost seems like, not compared to every situation, but, it gets to the point where you're not racing anybody, so it's almost harder to keep your focus in just the silence of, your engineers not having anything to tell you. And you're just going round and round, and there's no threat of anybody catching you. And you're holding a lap time that is not pushing in the least, to just get complacent and flip it around.
Man, I agree with that statement. However, I don't know that I agree that it applies with these guys.
Yeah, you might be right.
That's
probably what it is.
I can tell you myself. Yeah, if I'm battling with somebody on track or chasing somebody, right? It's very easy to make sure I keep my pace and keep pushing. If I'm by myself, it's a lot easier to get complacent, but I don't think that's the case with them.
Right. That's a fair point. That's probably true for the most part. All right, real quick before we get into the race itself, let's do a little what we're drinking tonight. And I'm going back to one that I started the season with. Well, Scotch tonight, the Dalmore 12 year. I figured why not? Because it was freaking awesome. And I want to drink it more. So that's what we're going to
do. No objection here, because I'm kind of doing the same thing. I didn't start the season with this one, but I am going back to what we drank a couple times last year. The Pinhook High Proof. This is the 116 proof, named after horse Bourbondini. That horse comes in at a whopping 16 hands. I think that's pretty big, isn't it? I'm not really sure. I'm gonna go with yes, but yeah, kind of the same reason, man. Like, I haven't had this one in a while, and it's delicious. And
was that the Ferrari bottle?
This was the Ferrari bottle. It was indeed. So, I almost opened up because I still have that second bottle of the Calandros pick, the Pinhook Calandros one. I still haven't opened up that second bottle of that I got. I almost did that tonight, but because that one is just so friggin' amazing.
It is good.
But I'll wait on that one.
Yeah. So, all right, you want to do your thing?
Yeah. So, I'll give you all my typical spiel here. Thank you for joining us, as usual. If you're catching this on the podcast webs, there is a link in the description to the YouTube channel. If you are catching this on YouTube, there is a link in there to our link tree on both, actually, YouTube and podcast. That'll take you to all of our social medias: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, as well as our website. Give you all the different ways you can DM us, email us, reach out to us. Do us a favor, give us a like and follow and subscribe, depending on where you're looking. We would greatly appreciate it. And that's about all I got. Let's dive right into
Sweet.
some Australia.
Let's do it, man. Like we said,
We could kind of like hit the start and then just like skip right into the last 5 laps. Huh? That pretty much
man, not really. I mean, yes and no, right?
Right. Yeah.
Look, man, Mercedes looked strong.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, look, let's say this. From this point on, everything that we say is not in comparison to Red Bull.
I think
it's in comparison and relative to what they have been doing and to everybody else.
Yeah. I think that's a good disclaimer to put out there.
So, Mercedes look good, man. They look strong. You can't. Whoa, that was almost bad. You kind of saw a little more, just another race in a row where you saw a little bit of drama between the two teammates.
Mm-hmm.
George got out front and they're telling him to manage. And Lewis is just all up on him, pushing him, and George wasn't having it.
No, man. And that was
very strange. That was very un-Mercedes-like.
It was. Now here's the one thing about all that I was wondering. And I don't think this is the case, but at the same time, I don't recall hearing a radio transmission to Lewis, telling him to push like at this same exact time. But we do know that on the broadcast, those radio transmissions are delayed quite a bit from when they actually happen, right? Mm-hmm. When we hear them and see them on TV, that is not live happening. So when that transmission came across, how much earlier was that, right? Was Lewis in fact being told to push while George was being told to manage, while Lewis was right on his gearbox?
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like, just was the timing with what we heard on the radio, was that in line with what we were seeing on track? You know what I'm saying?
Well, to be honest, like, I don't think it matters. At some point in time, Lewis was pushing, George was managing, and he was not happy about it. He doesn't give a shit if Lewis is being told to push or not. And I personally don't think it matters. Well, I guess it does. It does a little bit for more internally, but externally it doesn't matter because it's, is Lewis going rogue? Or, and just being like, I'm not pushing, because Max was hanging on him, but Max wasn't really attacking him.
Right.
Max was just looked to be just like calm and collective, and he was going to do his thing knowing that he was going to breeze by him at some point. It was just a matter of when he decided to do it.
Right.
But Max wasn't going to compromise his race just to get right back by the Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously they can manage and he can sit there and like they can look at the data and be like, dude, we got 3 seconds a lap right now we can put on them. You know, like they know where they're at. And if it's something where, hey, look, we need to get right back by them, or look, just let them stay close to them and let them burn their tires up trying to stay ahead.
Yeah. I mean,
but you know, with that being said, it didn't look like Max was really putting the pressure on Lewis until Lewis started putting the pressure on George.
Mm-hmm.
Like once they started kind of going at it, Max had his nose right in there and was just waiting to pounce.
Right.
But before that, you know, so like I don't know. I don't know if it was one of those things where Lewis just assumed Max would be coming right back at him. So he was just going to go balls to the wall because they didn't expect to be in front.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but it wasn't a great of a look because it kind of made them look like they weren't even remotely prepared for that possibility.
Well, they weren't.
That's shit. Then you should be. You're starting 2 and 3 on the grid. Like, why in the hell would you not be prepared to have a good start or Max, you know, miss a gear or whatever and fall back, and all of a sudden you're in control of the race? You know, it's not like you were starting 5th and 6th.
Well, I think you see, I think there's 2 different instances, right? There's the off chance that you get a good start, something happens to Max, and now Max is not even like there and not a threat.
That's not what I'm talking. That's not
and you're not managing. You're not trying to control.
No, that doesn't play at all.
It does. It's two very different things.
I know, but it doesn't play because that didn't happen to Max. What I'm talking, obviously, you talk about that.
You're saying they didn't like have this. You know, they weren't planning for this possibility. You know, if you get a better start than Max, but he's still right there. Look, we all know it's no different than him being in front of you because he's going to be right back there in a matter of laps anyway.
But it is different. It is different because you don't know. Like, you can control. Like, look, just for instance, let's say, you know, you hold him back and he doesn't jump on you right away. Then let's say that he takes that safety car, that second safety car, whenever it came out, before they red flagged it, and y'all stayed out. Well, now it's massive, you know, and you essentially could have cost yourself something that would have fell right into your hands by just doing stupid things. You know, it's just it's not something that you would expect from a team like Mercedes.
I think the
be on the same page.
Contingency plan of controlling the race is that plan is there if Max is nowhere to be found.
I think that's a loser mentality, and I don't think Mercedes operates like that.
I think it's realistic.
I still think it doesn't.
Your
matter.
plan is to still control from Ferrari back, Aston Martin back, right?
Sure, but you don't know. Like, you can't. You can do. You set your pace and your schedule. And you control to what you can control. If Max decides just to blast right by you and start attacking, that's one thing, and you can't do anything about it. That's a completely separate thing. But you can still have both your guys on the same page and your plans aligned and say, okay, this is the pace that we need to set and we need to control. And we need to control our race to the circumstances that we're in right now and play ball. If it's just it, we could do these what ifs back and forth all night, but the fact of the matter is, it was just very odd because it made them look unprepared for that scenario, and it was very unlike them.
I do agree.
It really seems like, as a team, and I don't know if the two things are, I don't know if it's one because of the other or if they're two completely separate things, whatever. But
right,
being that they started, they're not where they want to be, and there's definitely friction inside the team because of that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not pointed at anybody, but nobody's in, great moods all the time. There's always, struggles and problems and things like that they're trying to work through. And then maybe that has allowed this division to kind of seep in to the teams between the two sides of the garages, because like George seems to be the real deal, and I don't know how well Lewis is dealing with that.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on
Toto
the head
is
with
handling
division in the garage, right? And of course, we don't have insider information to the Mercedes garage. We can only just kind of assume. But, this is kind of something I've always wondered about, is how separated are the two sides of any of these garages, right? Like the guys that handle one car and the guys that handle the other. Obviously, they all report to just a singular person, but how much of that division is even possible, right? Like just with the operation and who's doing what and whatnot. So like I would think that it is possible. The guys dedicated to George's car and the guys dedicated to Lewis's car. The guys dedicated to George's car, they see what George is, and they see that George is the future, and they see how good he is, and they see what he's done, and they see how competitive he is in comparison to Lewis. And then on the other side of the garage, you've got the guys that, see Lewis and have been part of that car for the last, 7 championships. And, I could very easily see how there is some division. I just wonder if that's even legitimately a possibility, right? Obviously,
so, man.
Driver to driver, of course, there's
right.
There's the possibility.
I think 100% there is on the mechanic side as well. Because have you read Steve Match's book Life in the Fast Lane?
I actually have not. No,
it's a great book. It's about the '94 season. It's essentially just like a diary or journal depiction of that entire season. But he talks about that because he was in Benetton at that time in that year, and he was on the car. It was, a few different drivers that year, but he was opposite of Michael Schumacher. So he had a couple different drivers, and at one point he was talking to actually Jos Verstappen, and because he was a little down or whatever, and Jos was like, "What's up, man? What's going on?" He's like, our car, Michael's killing it over there, and our package is good, but we've just had horrible luck on our side, and our race car hasn't scored a point yet this year. So like, yeah, I think there definitely is, and that was at a time where you had unlimited testing. You had Benetton wasn't a huge team, but was growing into it by not a Ferrari size at that time, but starting to fit the bill for a bigger team with their as far as their funding and all that. But with the unlimited amount of testing that they did back then, the mechanics just logistically would have to do whatever, work with both sides, so like he would test with Schumacher a lot, throughout the season, and like his whole side of the garage, and they would flip-flop different chassis all over the place. So essentially, like, all the mechanics' hands were on every car, just kind of like rolling through the season.
Right.
And he would work with them, with both the drivers, but come race time, he was responsible for this side. Other team was responsible for Schumacher's side, and it bothered him.
Yeah.
So knowing that, comparing that to what we know now, being that there's no freaking testing allowed, everything that's done like that is done on a simulator. And all of the actual competition is done on the track. I would imagine it's even more so divided for the mechanics.
You think so?
Yeah, well, especially because you don't have like all these rotating chassis like you used to have.
Right.
You have your car until it's crashed and it's no longer a usable car. And that's what you roll with. Back then it was, all right, strip the car down, new engine, new gearbox, new everything. Really the only thing that stayed the same was the chassis. But even the chassis would get rotated from time to time. Now, you have the chassis and everything, like the whole thing stays together as long as possible. So I would really, really imagine that the competition between and the competitive feelings inside the garages are, in terms of Formula One, at an all-time high, with the exception of maybe like those anomaly years when you had, a Nico and Lewis, or a Senna Prost, or it was the two teammates competing for the world title. Obviously, that would draw a hard line, but I think a situation like you have with George and Lewis makes for a very difficult situation, man, because Lewis has been the man for so long, he doesn't know how to act any other way.
Right.
But George, in George's mind, he's like, if I don't beat him, how will they ever think that I'm capable of being the future?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's absolutely in the position where he not only wants to, but he needs to prove himself. He needs to prove his worth, right? Like, and what better way to prove that than not only hanging with Lewis, but beating him? I mean, that's the ultimate. Hey guys, y'all made the right decision. Like, keep backing me. I'm here. Look, you know.
And on the other side of it is, Lewis has got to be thinking about his legacy. And the criticism that he's had for so long, with everybody really knowing that Bottas wasn't on his level, and everybody could say whatever they wanted, but everybody knew it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they knew what he was. He was a number two. He was there to support Lewis. And now that you have another guy, I wonder how much Lewis actually thinks about, like, man, I can't let George continue to beat me. I mean, George
Oh,
beat him last year.
you know, that's hard on his mind.
And look, dude, like George and Sainz are the ones that got royally screwed in this race
Yes.
by that stupid red flag, the first red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Ferrari finally fucking actually is proactive and quick on the trigger and does something that's going to give their driver a huge advantage over the rest of the field. And George did the same.
And then got screwed out of it.
Yeah, and they wound up red flagging it.
Yep.
Like, but it absolutely cost them because, man, they set themselves up to absolutely be 1 and 2 in the race. And I mean, there was going to be a lot of ground for the rest of them to make up when they would have had to pit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like for Max, I was trying to work it out in my head after they snuck that in there. I was like, man, this is going to get interesting. I kind of couldn't believe Red Bull didn't take advantage of it. But it almost would have been beneficial to just go ahead as close as they were to the original pit stop window. Just go ahead and change the tires anyway and not let somebody get a full pit stop on you.
Right.
Just cycle to the back of the queue, and at least you're not going to lose 30 seconds at race pace.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But either way, man, like I hate the red flag rules, man. I really do. They're so stupid.
So, man, a lot of this red flag.
We've been saying this for years, but
yeah, this red flag was solely because they were terrified to let the race finish under yellow.
I'm talking about the first red flag.
Oh, you're talking about the first one.
The first one,
okay.
Yeah, where Sainz and George
right there, at the pit. Okay. I jumped the gun a little bit there.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about like they had the crash. I think it was Albon's crash.
Albon, yeah.
And dude, like he threw some he threw gravel on the onto the track.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like they don't have any problem having a telehandler on the track to get the car. But as soon as they go through, put the sweepers on, and then everybody's got, like, I don't understand. It's not like it's the 19 freaking 40s.
Yeah.
Everybody's got radios and GPS. When they're coming down the straight, had the guys go park on the freaking side, let them go through and jump back on the track. And it's done without a goddamn red flag.
How many other times have we seen where something like that happens, right? That's the purpose of the safety car. You bunch the pack up.
Right.
It keeps them single file. The safety car leads them where they need to go. And it keeps the track clear for 90% of the time while they're going around. How many times have we seen where they'll have a dozen marshals out there picking up scraps of carbon fiber or with brooms all in a line sweeping the track off?
Mm-hmm.
Cars get a couple corners away. They step to the side. The safety car takes them on, a clean line that they've swept. The whole pack, all bunched up, passes. Marshals go back out, and it gets clean. Why was that not able to be done? We've seen that happen many, many times.
Yeah. Or even if you don't want to put a whole line of marshals out there, put that one street sweeper. But
Yeah.
like, dude, it's not like look, I completely understand it when the conditions are so that you don't want to risk that. That is not the case.
Mm-mm,
It's not the freaking case.
not at all.
And it's just, they threw the red flag late, man.
They did. Yeah, because at first,
I mean, it was enough time. It was enough time for I don't know where they were when the safety car came out, but it was enough time for George and Carlos to get into the pits, serviced, out of the pits, fall back in line, and go around for a good little bit. And the commentators really be like, holy smokes, like they're in a good position here. Lewis is over there, like, man, we are screwed.
Mhm.
And Red Bull's not saying anything because I don't think it would have mattered, but
Right.
who knows? It would have. They'd have had to work a lot harder, but it would have made it really close.
Mhm.
But essentially, I don't know, man. Like, do you do something where, like, because of the time frame, like you took George and Carlos out of it. So do you put them back where they were because everybody now gets a free pit stop? Do
Right.
you put the order to where if you have to do a red flag that late into a safety car, do you reset the order as to where it was when the safety car light was given? Should that be something that's done? Because that was complete bullshit.
Yeah. So, and that's where it gets tricky, right? Because safety car laps are considered race laps.
Right.
You know, so yeah, that gets a
But still, I mean, you're
little
talking
tricky
about
to
something
try
that
to say that they're going to reset.
like let's say that happens on the last race of the year. And you're talking about a title deciding moment where it's supposed to be a safety car. It's a safety car by, for quite a while. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden they throw a red flag over some stupid gravel where it's not something where like, they were concerned about the barrier because it was such a hard impact
Mhm.
or anything like that, where you knew that right away. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't a terrible crash. It looked bad, but it really wasn't that bad of an impact or anything like that. Like that's
Yeah, and that's one of the
shit,
things too
man.
that when an accident happens, right? Immediately the strategists are looking at it going, okay, you know, we see we've seen this before, this situation, right? Like we're confident they're not going to red flag it.
Mhm.
They can handle it this way and it's going to be a safety car, so let's pit. Or they see it and they're like, whoa, guys, let's hold off because this looks like it might get a red flag, you
Mhm.
know. And it's all based on previous precedent, right? And then they do this dumb shit and it screws everything up. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would be, if they throw a red flag halfway through a safety car period, or when the safety car has been out for 2 laps, it's almost like I feel like you should restore the order to where the safety car light was thrown out because it's not a true reflection of what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Because now these cars just absolutely got screwed.
Right.
And you went from creating an advantage to yourself to absolutely taking yourself out of the race.
Yep. Yeah, it was Carlos, George, and K-Mag were the three that pitted under the safety car and got screwed by that.
Mm-hmm. And K-Mag never really recovered.
No.
Like he's one, he doesn't have the capable car to just storm his way back through the field.
Right. And I mean, hell, he ended up DNFing anyway. I don't remember what position he DNF'd from, though.
He wasn't in the points. He was like 12 or something like that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I mean, that changes time. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't happen if the other stuff doesn't happen.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tricky one, and it sucks. And everybody, you say it's part of it, and it is the way it stands right now. But it's just that's one of those things that's not right about it.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's dude. Here's the worst part about it is that this is the same complaint time and time and time again, right? It may be a different circumstance, but it's the same root complaint of inconsistency.
Mm-hmm.
And man, at what point does it change? At what point, like something's got to give eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've got to get a grasp on this and get better about it. But I'm starting to lose faith in that.
I don't. It's definitely not going to happen with two race directors. Are they still doing that bullshit this year?
I don't think no, but I mean it's still the rotating panel of stewards and all that.
Yeah, but the stewards that doesn't matter with this. This is all on the race director. I can't remember if they did away with the two race director thing after the catastrophe of last year, the whole year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not just one instance.
Right. Let's see. Let me just check because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they did away with all of it.
But all in all, man, Mercedes had, their pace looked good. George wound up losing his power unit, which was a rare occurrence. I mean, that's his first mechanical failure since he joined Mercedes.
All right, so let's see. Yeah, so Niels Wittich is set to act as F1 race director at all 23 Grand Prix in 2023. Yeah. But oddly enough, there was a statement from Mohammed bin Sulayem in, January of this year, saying that F1 will not go back to one race director.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, that whole thing's a cluster in itself.
Yeah. But yeah, so look, Mercedes looked good. Aside from, George's engine blowing up. That didn't look great, but the pace looked better.
Yeah.
The pace looked good. Was it the whole field was just tight.
Mm-hmm.
Even Max, he only had about a 10 to 12 second lead on the field. So I'm sure, you had a lot of track specific things kind of come together to create that. I still don't think we've seen what this Red Bull is really capable of. I don't think we've had to.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to until somebody forces that.
And I think that's a shame. I'd like to see him just unleash it. Just to see. Maybe they did the first, maybe that's what Bahrain was. Because they didn't know, so they just,
they just went full send and
until until the back third.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, either way, dude. That Red Bull is arguably the best car we've seen in F1 in quite some time relative to the field. I'd have to go back and do the numbers. I mean, it feels like Mercedes has had one on par with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still too early to really say that it's more dominant. I mean, obviously, it's going to take a few years of seeing it doing this.
No, I'm talking about this year's car.
No, I know, but you're saying, arguably the best car we've seen in recent years, relative to the field.
Yeah. So how is that going to take a few years to see?
Because the argument of best car relative to the field is in comparison to the Mercedes of the last 7 years.
No, I said in a long while. I'm talking about bringing back to the old Red Bulls, to the Ferrari dominance, to McLaren's. Like, I'm going way back. I'm going back 30 years.
Yeah, and the closest, I think the closest competition to it, as far as dominance over the rest, is the most recent Mercedes. As far as pace over the rest over X number of years.
No, Mercedes, I'm not talking about years. I'm talking about this car, the RB19. Just this car.
You just said you're going back 30 years.
Yes. Comparing it to other cars from that, like, this car versus the field that it's in, being as dominant as it is, comparing it to other cars from the last 30 years that have been considered dominant. Some of the 02 and 04 Ferrari.
Yeah.
Some of the past Mercedes.
Yeah.
Some of the Red Bulls. What are you missing here?
I'm not.
Yes, you are.
The next, it's competition up until now. The most dominant car relative to the rest of the pack was the most recent Mercedes. That was more dominant than any of the other previous generations. How dominant they were,
over
their pace,
the years, but not
their pace
necessarily
over, their pace over the rest of the field, coupled with the amount of years that they did that for, the Mercedes was the most dominant comparative to the rest of the field.
That's where our disconnect is. I don't care. No. Listen, that's where our disconnect is right there. I'm not talking about. I'm not in this comparison. I'm not comparing it to the team over a span of years. I'm strictly talking about a single car for that year. That's it. Like, I'm not talking. I know what you're seeing. I know what you're talking about now. So and it makes sense why you were saying what you were saying.
You're not talking a car within a set of regs over.
No. I mean this specific car. That's what I said. Okay. The RB19.
Okay. I mean,
not the Red Bull car of this set of regs. I'm talking about this car this year.
You're talking about 1 year at a time, no further.
Yes, because like even like Mercedes through those set of regs, yeah, obviously that was the most impressive run of dominance that we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's
But
why I was kind of confused as to why
what
you
I'm
were
talking
arguing
about with them is their car, like pick their best car from those years, whatever it is, was it whether it's 20, maybe 2020
19
or 2014 or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. Their
Yeah,
most
no,
dominant one.
I see where you're at now. I get where you're at.
And that's how this car will be compared at the trajectory it's on right now.
Yes.
Because there is nothing in this field that can touch it.
No.
You know, and there may be a track, a couple tracks in the 23 race calendar that maybe it suits one of the other cars a little bit better. And they wind up getting them on merit. Or, you know, Max blows an engine or whatever. Like, they're not going to win all of them. But
well, I mean, hell, if Max blows an engine, look, they could probably just come into the pits, hot swap an engine,
change it,
take an immediate, 5-place penalty, and still run the field back down and win.
No, they wouldn't even have to take a penalty because they would put them in the back of the field.
Yeah, right.
But no, you're right. That's funny. You're right.
Like, as long as he can blow it and just limp back to the pits, they could probably hot swap it and still finish the race and win.
At least score points.
Yeah, no doubt. God, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this may. I feel like this Red Bull will go down as one of those cars.
Oh, without a doubt.
If it doesn't, kudos to the rest, to at least one other team for figuring their shit out in a way that
to stop that from happening.
To stop this from happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, dude, at this point, I'm willing and ready to put this car in that category already.
Yeah, after 3 races.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's never been in question, and there's not only has it not been in question, there hasn't been another team that has even flashed the potential to keep up with it.
Yeah.
I'm talking in practice and qualifying, nothing.
Nope.
In a race at all, like, you know, I really don't know. And you know, what's even worse is I think Ferrari has figured out something on their race pace, because, I mean, Carlos has been struggling compared to Charles on the race pace, and we didn't get to see Charles execute his plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be willing to bet he'd have been, I mean, he's been 5-10 seconds ahead for the most part. Typically, last in Saudi, they kind of screwed him over with the tires and had him kill it.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really a reflection of where he's been. But he's been much quicker than Carlos typically in this car so far. Let's talk about that a little bit, because there was quite a few similar instances in this race, and some were penalized and some weren't.
Yeah.
So personally, I think Lance Stroll is the one, and I'll say to blame, but that's a hard opinion. He just kind of stuck his car into no man's land. Like, he wasn't up alongside Alonso. His front tire was level with Alonso's rear tire. he could have easily, and he slid in there. Like, he could have easily just tucked in right behind Alonso, and there had been plenty of room for Charles to continue. Like, Charles had to turn in.
So I think I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think Lance could have backed out. However,
I don't even think it's backing out. Like, he just kind of sent it
I say backed out. I guess I should kind of reword that into realizing that you've put yourself in an awkward place at corner entry, right?
Right.
Like,
that's good.
Not back out last minute, but you got there and kind of be able to realize
like
that
you have to know that there's nothing to gain here.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, it's also mid-pack turn 1 lap 1, right? So Charles, that he knew how far away Alonso was from him. And that he knew there was a car width in between him and Alonso. So lap 1 turn, I think I said turn 1 a second ago, turn 3. You should know that if that opening is there, somebody is probably going to try to wedge himself up in it, and you should kind of just maintain your line through that turn until everything kind of settles out, right? Well, you, at that point, you should still be expecting anything. You know what I'm saying?
But like at that point, Stroll was the only one who was around there. And dude, if I'm Stroll, I'm looking at the open, how much space there is on the inside and freaking diving for that. And it's going to set me up on a fantastic run through 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? I just can't wrap my head around what you were trying to accomplish by sticking your nose where he did. Because
I think that's a big part of it.
That's the part that I can't get past. Like Charles and it was so late. Like, it's not like he was just riding there, and then like, oh man, like I don't have anywhere to go. Like, it's too late. People are on me now. Like, I can't back out and take this space. Like, he just, and it's like he got caught asleep.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I mean, a lot of Fakasi things always happen like that in turns like that on the first lap. And everybody's bunched up and all, but I don't know what else Leclerc could have done right there.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, there was no penalties given. And like I said, I don't think it was a harsh consequence for Charles, where I don't really think he did anything wrong. But I also don't really think Stroll deserved a penalty. I think that was fine. Like, it was just a lap 1 incident. I think Stroll could have done better and placed his car better, not even to avoid Leclerc. I'm just talking about there looked to be a huge opportunity up the inside. Like, I don't know how you missed that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you partially. I disagree partially. I think they were equally both at fault. I can't say that Leclerc didn't do anything wrong. Now, yeah, the mirrors on them cars are freaking tiny. Could he really see that Stroll came in there? Maybe, maybe not. Should he have kind of expected it? Maybe, maybe not. I think they both had equal parts, but I do agree with you that I'm good with the no penalty there. Yeah, Leclerc got more of the shit end of the stick on it, but you know what though? we've complained before about the way the runoffs are done at a lot of these new tracks where you make a mistake and it doesn't even penalize you. You know, you just run off on some asphalt and you come back on after you made a huge screw up. Whereas here, there was a mistake made, I think, on his part just as much as Stroll's, and it penalized him. So I cannot sit here and say that, I don't know. I'm not going to contradict. I think
No,
he
I'm not
made a
saying
mistake,
anything.
as
I'm not
well.
saying anything about the
But
gravel traps. I'm fine with it.
no, I know. I'm just kind of looping all that together, right? Like I don't think he made a large enough mistake to where I think it should have ended his race, right? Because the car itself was I don't think was really all that damaged.
Mm-mm.
Um, it
I
was
just spun him.
yeah, I mean it was a minor mistake that just caused a little spin, but it ended up ending it for him. But yeah, I mean lap one incident, like that's I'm with you on that. I'm good there as long as that gets maintained.
But and that's the thing too. Like Gasly's got a pile of freaking points on his license for shit way less egregious than that. You know, stuff where he's literally been stuck in the middle, like nothing he
Mhm.
can do. There's nowhere to go. He's
Yeah.
pinched in the middle, and they give him a freaking penalty.
Yep.
Like, what
Yep.
are you? It's not like there was a gap and he freaking shot it at the last minute and people were already turning in. No, like, you're coming down to turn 1, 3 wide, and everybody's on the brakes, and there's nowhere to go because you got
Mhm.
people right behind you as well. You can only back out so much.
Yeah.
And you penalize that enough to give him points on his life, and not only give him penalty in the race, but give him points on his license.
Mhm.
Yet you've got, I don't know how many instances this weekend, and hardly any penalties given until they decide to penalize freaking Carlos Sainz for a ridiculous penalty.
Yep. So, on the Leclerc and Stroll thing, I'm very much of the opinion that they both were at fault. On Carlos and Alonso, I'm very much of the opinion that Carlos was not at fault
I don't
at
believe
all.
if anybody
At
deserved,
all.
like, that should have been another ever. Dude, at the entry to that turn and shot across back into the racing line. I'm sorry, bro. If you take the line that wide, you forfeit your right to the line. What is
Well, and
Carlos
it's
supposed to do?
yeah, well, and it's not even
Oh,
that
come on,
he
Fernando. Get back in line
yeah,
here.
right. It's not even that he shot out so far, and was trying to come back on the line. He got a better run out of that corner than Hamilton did, and he was right on his gearbox. He was he was trying to jog back to the right to get his run around Lewis. It wasn't even like he pushed wide and then Carlos was there on the line. Carlos was already
No, I'm not saying he pushed wide. I'm saying he took a wide line in and tried to shoot back in aggressively. Like he swooped from like three
well,
cars wide
no,
to
it wasn't even so much that. Like Carlos was just like Alonso was on the line on exit, and Carlos was just there actually gaining ground on him coming up his right, as well as Alonso was gaining ground on Hamilton and was in the process of making a move to the right to start working around him. And, Carlos was there. I don't think that was Carlos's fault at all. like not in the least. And what I don't understand is how nobody else seemed to see that. The first time I saw Alonso's in car, I saw the steering wheel move to the right to start working around Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that not a single announcer brought that up? And the stewards seem to not see that, that was the first thing I saw. I don't get how that one escalated to Carlos essentially getting freaking executed over it.
Yeah, like, and especially at that point, you give a 5-second penalty when there's no freaking, like, everybody's just stacked up.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm rewatching this thing right now. Let's see here. Okay, so here we go. He shot across. He's making a run at Lewis. He's out wide. Bro, he shot across Gasly's nose and missed him by freaking millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, millimeters. So Carlos takes as conservative of a line as he possibly can through this corner. Like, he's on the inside. He's coming down. He wraps the curb and stays as much inside as he can. Meanwhile, Fernando goes from the yellow line on the outside of the track and shoots straight across the nose of Gasly back into the racing line, almost up the gearbox of Hamilton,
mm-hmm.
and straight across into Sainz. Bro, like, I can't see how in the hell you can put that on Sainz. From Sainz's vantage point, he probably couldn't see Alonso until his freaking side pods was in his tires because of where Gasly was positioned.
Right.
Like, until Alonso was coming straight across and it was too late for anything to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, by the time Sainz can see Alonso making his move, it's too late. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
What an absolute shit call by the stewards.
Yep.
Every one of them. You're a loser. That's terrible, dude. And you cost somebody, a third or a fourth place to out of the points. What a joke.
Yeah.
When that, I don't know, how many times did that happen in this race? 4? And that's the only one you penalize?
Mm-hmm.
And it's maybe the least egregious of all of them?
Yeah, with the harshest a penalty could essentially get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
while we're on the topic of Aston Martin, and
Yep.
both of their drivers being involved in skirmishes with Ferraris, man, everybody's all like really high on them right now. And I don't know about their actual pace. What we do know about them is that they're really good on the tires. And
Yes.
they will make you pay on tracks that are very hard on tires towards the end of stints. Then they will be blindingly quick because of the difference of tires that their car has versus yours.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you're on equal tires, I don't think they're that great. And that's what really upset me, that we didn't get to see Leclerc. Because Carlos just walked by Stroll when he got set back behind him on his way back through the field.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see Leclerc see where he could see where he was in relation to Alonso and Hamilton and Russell and all early on in that race. Because, I mean, the Aston Martins didn't have Mercedes pace today or that day.
Mm-hmm.
We're a week late here. But, you know, they weren't even on pace with the Mercedes. So I'm a little skeptical about how great this car really is. Now, let's not, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. What they've done year over year is astounding. You know, the gain in pace that they have made is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's
without a doubt.
Without a change of regulation, it is, in recent memory, probably one of the best that we've ever seen, year to year inside of a set of regulations. But man, I'm not ready to crown them. They've had some good results, but they've also had a lot of gifts so far in the first 3 races. So, you know, Bahrain, I think, was kind of a showcase for their car in terms of, like, Bahrain is notoriously hard on tires. And that's what their car does best, is go easy on tires.
Yeah, it showcased that.
So, but, you know, so let's dial that back. And I think this would have been a great equalizer, this track, a track that doesn't really do a whole lot to the tires. I mean, look, Carlos's race pace was legit. And, you know, had he had a little better luck and not had to fight so much through the field, who knows where he'd have wound up.
Mm-hmm.
Because he clawed back to, what, a second and a half behind Alonso after restarting in 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, where does that really put them? And Max just left everybody in the dirt. You know, so where does that really put Aston? Because had Carlos not had to do that, you got to think he'd have had a ton of life left in his tires. If he'd have just been able to stay in line, he wouldn't have been stuck behind all these cars. He wouldn't have had to work nearly as hard. He could have played his tires better. And clearly his pace throughout that was a lot greater than Fernando's. So you got to think he would have at least been in third, probably second, because Lewis was only a second or two ahead of Fernando.
I mean, it's all a possibility, right? I mean,
you just got to look at, like, Carlos was able to close it down to a second and a half or so, but also, behind Alonso.
You know, factor in all that while wearing tires faster than the Aston is, right? You know, I mean, was that all potentially there? Yeah. You know, but it's a hard if game to play, you know.
Well, here's the what if that kind of says, I guess what I'm implying is that even after Carlos fought back from 12th to 4th and had to do a lot of legitimate racing and not just breezing by people, once he got him, Alonso never left him again.
Mhm.
Like, I think the tires were to a point where he couldn't really close it down and push much more, but Alonso never left him at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's not like he never really opened that gap. That he, like, Carlos didn't hit a wall where his tires were just dead and Alonso just opened it back up.
Right.
So, like, that's to me what kind of says, like, man, if Carlos wouldn't have had to burn up all that rubber and get the best of his tires out, wear them out coming back through the field, that to me is kind of what says he'd have been, I'm pretty sure what did he close down? Probably 20 seconds worth of time. He probably could have got an extra 4 on the other 2.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I see.
Like the car had the pace to do that. They just had to use it in an unadvantageous way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the thing that kind of like that we really didn't get to see the true pace of where Ferrari is relative to Red Bull either, because Ferrari legitimately looked like they made strides this weekend in terms of pace. And we just didn't get to see any of it play out the way that we wanted it to, right? I think this race could have been like a really good indicator of, no track specific things taking advantage, like where teams are just taking hard advantage of it.
Right.
Saudi is such a straight line track. Like, it's such a high speed track that, those limitations, if your car has top speed limitations, you're nowhere. But it doesn't necessarily speak to your overall package and where you really are.
Yeah.
Bahrain is insanely hard on tires. Australia is kind of like just a happy medium between everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have really got to see, a great, and it was shaping up that way. And unfortunately, Russell blew up and, all the mayhem that was.
Yeah.
But I think it left a lot to be questioned in terms of, like, man, I think we have a lot of excitement left to see.
Oh, without a doubt. And we still have tracks that are going to favor very different things that we have not seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we absolutely still have a lot to see from everybody other than Red Bull, because it doesn't really matter. They're just going to run away.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, there's still a lot to see regardless. But man, that'd be interesting just to see, like, some kind of way to see, like, I guess, the great equalizer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something where it just levels out everything and see where everybody stacks up.
So I'll tell you what's going to be very interesting, man, and very, very telling, I think, look, Red Bull might walk away with this year, but what we've got to keep an eye on is what we've got to keep an eye on here is the next 5 races, because I don't know how much this is all coming from just random people within the teams, and who knows, I'm sure these schedules are, fast tracked and all. So who knows if they wind up coming to fruition when they say they do. Maybe they're a race early, maybe they're a race behind.
Mhm.
But Baku through Spain, we have McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes all planning concept changing updates
Mhm.
within the next 5 races. So who gets theirs out earliest? Who's is actually ready to roll when they roll it out? And who's makes instant progress, and who's maybe shows they got a ton of potential here. And I think that is going, these next 5 races are going to set the tone for the remainder of these regulations. Because if one of those teams doesn't hit it out the park, then I don't know how you can catch Red Bull, how anybody can catch Red Bull until they reset it again in 26.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
the gap that they're putting out there is getting borderline untouchable.
well, dude, I mean, even if one of them does hit it out the park, guess what? It's not like Red Bull standing still.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is, like, okay, Ferrari, we know last year they were on par with Red Bull until whatever came out with the floors
Mhm.
that changed, that absolutely wrecked their concept.
Yeah.
So let's say they take it back to the drawing board, and like we know that car, like we know the potential is there, right? So let's say their redesign just nails it,
Brings them back to
and
like
they're back to
pre
kind of
that.
like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
back to kind of on par with what they were. Now, I'm not talking. Obviously, they need to be faster than they were then, but brings us back to that point where maybe you have a few track specific issues, but you can hang in Red Bull. You can hang with the Red Bull.
Mhm.
And it kind of varies week in and week out depending on what track you're on,
Right.
or whatever. Ferrari to me seems like the only team that's capable of that this year.
With the help of essentially a Hail Mary.
Well, not necessarily, because from
Because I mean,
everything
just
I've read, this has been in the works since 2 races after the, what was it? When was it? Spa
mhm.
was the first race back
Yep.
when that
The floor
directive took
change
place.
and yeah. Mhm.
2 races after that is when they kind of decided, like, look, this rule has screwed us like irreversibly. So we need to, like, short-term fix, long-term fix. The
Yeah.
long-term fix had, like, both of them got worked on, and essentially, like, the long-term fix is exactly what it was. Like, they couldn't have it ready for this year. So that's why you just saw a lot of refinement of their previous concept
Yeah, but I mean, at this
in
point,
terms of the edges, but they kind of still knew that it was fucked.
yeah, but I mean, at this point, it's like we've been saying for Mercedes, right? Yeah, I mean, look, anything can happen, but this is F1 2023 we're talking about, that large of a gap does not just get clawed back overnight.
Right, but here's where I'll, in my mind, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but Ferrari is looking through a different lens than Mercedes, because Ferrari got it right already.
They had it right.
Mercedes
they did
has
have
not.
A working.
Mercedes
they had a
has
working
to figure
plan
out
to go
what
off of.
works. Ferrari knows what works. They just have to. They had to figure out another way to do it.
Yeah,
Mercedes still has to figure out how to do it.
So you're not wrong there.
So that's why I'm saying I think Ferrari has a better chance of hitting it out of the park with the relaunch of their new concept or whatever, their retooling or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So
versus
yeah, I mean,
Mercedes,
McLaren. You've got a valid point there, and take this back, a number of years where they could have made this short-term fix and been working on the long-term fix in the background while having however much testing at Fiorano that they wanted, right? I think them jumping right back
cost cap.
up, right? But jumping right back up on par with Red Bull was absolutely doable. I think.
Yeah, I mean, we said that before. Like last year, had there been no cost cap, no testing restrictions, you'd have seen like a 2 or 3 race wobble.
Yeah.
From them, and they'd have been right back on it.
Yeah. And I think even if they figured it out, right? Like, okay, how do we take what we had pre-Spa last year? How do we accept the new directive that they put forward and get back to that? You're still not back on par current day. You know what I'm saying?
No, like, but what I do think,
and I know there would have been advancement from that point with Ferrari, right? They would have figured out more. They have more data now. They have a lot more to work with, right?
They know a lot more now than they did then.
Right.
So like that all gets incorporated, and that's what you're looking for.
But
like that's how the development happens.
Right. But it's still not right. You can look at the race data of the current car, but you still don't have the race data of
you don't have the
whatever new idea reiteration they have, right? So,
like, all I'm saying is, like, they know what the air looks like moving around the car that works,
and
they have they know what they're looking for. Mercedes doesn't yet.
Yeah,
like they haven't seen it yet in. You know what I mean? Like, in order to know what to chase. But I feel like the next, I guess 5, right? 5 races, I think.
Yeah.
From what I've heard now, maybe it's more. Maybe it winds up being more. Maybe give it till Silverstone. Or hell, even the first half. Like, let's call it the summer break. Which I'm guessing is still the same after Hungary. I think that'll tell us an awful lot by then.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
And I'm so hopeful that McLaren's supposed to be the first one out with their new complete redesign. And that's supposed to happen at the next race at Baku.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which they looked better in Australia.
Yes. Better than. I mean, it's.
I mean, they're still way off the front. The front pack.
It's still a very, very far ways away from saying that they look good. Looking better than the shit show they were. They still looked like shit, right? But maybe a little bit less
for McLaren, I guess. But
right, yeah, comparatively to who they are, what they are, I mean, the pedestal that they are held to instantaneously just because of being McLaren.
It's so funny, man, because like when I think of McLaren, I think like how can they be where they are, but yet people that have only been watching F1 for the last hell, even call it 10 years, only know McLaren as a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so funny. Like I gotta remind myself of that because God, they haven't been good in freaking 15 years. Like Ferrari's had their problems, but they have won a lot of races between then. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like they've won races consistently.
Yeah.
But man, come on, McLaren. Let's
Do
get it
better.
together over here.
Yeah.
Let's freaking get it together. I mean,
Well, and look, we've talked about this before. You don't get it together, you better start being concerned about Lando. Like
yeah,
if you
man.
don't get it together with a quickness, and I
Dude,
don't
I'm
want to
telling you.
get too much in a rabbit hole on this because we've
will.
talked about this
'Cause
before.
we will.
And we will. But like that's a serious concern. And I
Mhm.
hope I'm sure they do. Zach Brown's not an idiot. You know, he's got to see it and feel that as well. But like, man, if y'all want any chance of regaining the success that y'all have once had, like, you better not lose the stud that you've got in the car.
Dude, I cannot see Lando not jumping ship. I just can't.
I mean, look, man, I don't know me personally, the way I see it, like at a certain point, you don't really believe those promises anymore, right? Like
Mhm.
you stuck with them. At a certain point, you're like, you know what? I'm tired of empty promises. And I don't know how much more Lando is going to hear. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a real concern.
I think Ferrari is actually in a similar boat with Charles,
Mm-hmm.
yet very different. Ferrari has proven they can give Charles a competitive championship contending car. When they said they were shooting for, they delivered on that.
Yeah.
It's not their fault that other teams pretty much politic their way into having the rules change mid-season, which I think is complete and utter bullshit.
Yep.
And absolutely screwed them. That's things that they couldn't control, and that I don't think even Charles would hold that against them. However, the other things, the constant fuck ups on strategy are unacceptable. The engine reliability is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. And so here's what's going to be the deciding factor, which we just haven't really had the chance to see yet. We have slightly. They've made a couple miscalls, I guess we'll say, thus far, but nothing as horrendous as they did last year. But we haven't really seen yet if they have fixed their fuckery that was the strategy department, right? The technical stuff that they kind of just got dealt and had no control over. I agree with you. Charles, I think, can look past that. We really haven't seen yet if they have fully resolved, and I don't think they fully resolved because we've seen hints. But have they
I mean, just
made
at Saudi, it cost
yeah,
Charles a ton.
yeah, have they
I'm
made
telling you,
any improvements, right? Like you just have to show that there are improvements. I don't think anybody expects, you know, a complete 180 just like that. But have there been some improvements? That's what needs to be shown.
dude, I think he needs a new race engineer.
I agree.
100%. I think that would fix a lot of the problem. They do not communicate well
Nope.
together. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know what. We've looked it up a bunch of times. I can't remember his race engineer's name. But, dude, they just do not. They're not on the same wavelength. They
No.
don't think alike. He doesn't communicate nearly enough with Charles. And when he does, it's always late. Always late. Always late.
Always.
Like, and then you listen to like other teams, and they have just constant conversation, and it's always just like smooth ahead of time, like on time, just and that doesn't happen, man. And it's so sad that something like that can hold you back so much.
Yeah.
And to me, it just seems like an easy fix.
Yep. Well,
like there has to be somebody in the engineering and strategy department and all that Charles just jives with,
right,
in a much better way.
Yeah.
That they can plug into that role. And essentially, that role, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like,
no, go ahead.
Essentially, you don't even need that guy to know any fucking thing. Just be a good communicator. Yeah. Just put the information in front of him and let him relay it to Charles.
Feed him the information. Right. Exactly. Like, dude, I mean, and it's not hard to see that. Like, you look at Max and GP, right? Look at Lewis and Toto, right? The communication,
not Toto. Just that's not his race.
I mean, not Toto, Bono. Look at them, and you just see like how well they communicate and how they know how to calm their driver down. They know what information he's going to want, when he's going to want it, when he's going to need it. And it's just so seamless, right? And when he's worked up, when he's pissed off, when there's something that he's not going to be happy with, when you tell him, they know how to deliver it or what to follow it up with. And like, it's just, there are such good examples of how that relationship should go. For them to not see how shitty the current one is with Charles, like, it's kind of mind-boggling.
Dude, I honestly feel like the main problem is the language barrier. Aside from the timeliness of a lot of the things, there's a obvious language barrier there, because you've got his engineer. God, I cannot remember his name.
I don't remember it either. I'm gonna have to look it up again.
And he's got such a strong accent. Half the time, you don't know if he's making a statement or asking a question.
Right.
And like,
well, that's part of the problem. He's usually asking Charles. It's like, dude, you should not. You should just be telling him, right?
And Charles, and I don't blame him for being this way, but he puts his trust and his faith in the team. Like, how many times have we seen Lewis and Mercedes in his run of dominance, when they make a call to him, and he's just like, man, guys, this doesn't feel right. And they're like, no, don't worry. It's the right call. And he does it, and it works out. Sure, every now and then it doesn't. But more times than not, like you would hear that a lot. Like Lewis would question it a lot, and they just very assertive and like, listen, no, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
If they were questioning something, a lot of times they give him the option. Lewis, we're happy for you to keep going. If they were kind of 50-50 on it. But and that's what it should be. Not if you're seeing something on your data on the tires and you're like, hey, we need a box and a lap, next lap. And Charles is like, dude, these tires are still good. Like, we still got some life in them. Like, let's keep going. That's a different thing. But like it seems like you're asking your driver to not only drive, but to plan his race while he's racing
his own engineer. Yep. His engineer is Xavier Marcos Padros.
That's right, Xavier. Well, unfortunately, Xavier, I think your days are numbered as Charles race engineer. I'm not saying fire him. I'm sure he brings something great to the table. But I don't think that's the right position any longer. Maybe he worked great. Who was he before? Was he Kimi's?
Let's see.
Did he work? Maybe he worked great with Kimi.
Let's see if I can find his resume.
But it don't matter.
Well, I mean, look, if he was Kimi's, it's not hard to be Kimi's race engineer. All you have to do is say, no, Kimi, you will not have to drink. No, the drink is not working.
It is easy because he doesn't like you to talk to him much.
Yeah, exactly.
And that could be part of the problem. That could be the exact root of the problem. That Kimi just knew what to do, and all you had to do was tell him when to box.
Yeah, right.
And Charles just puts all of his faith in his team to a detriment.
Yeah. I mean, he got so accustomed to getting yelled at when he tried to talk that he just learned to not talk, and then now it's screwing Charles.
Well, I think that
let's see.
And Carlos, his experience with different teams, I think, has led to a good balance of him thinking through his strategy and through what's going on and questioning a lot. And I think you'll see that change with Charles through this situation where he does start to question more. But I think, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad trait that you trust your team implicitly.
Yeah, yeah. So, a little history on him real quick. He got his first F1 job as a performance engineer with HRT in 2010 through 12. He then went to Williams as a performance engineer for Massa. He then left and went to work as a chief race engineer for Richard Childress in NASCAR. And then he came back to Formula One with Ferrari as a factory-based race engineer for 2018, and then became the race engineer for Charles in 19. So he was not Kimi's race engineer.
Well, there you have it.
Yep.
Charles, get your boy in line or
Yeah.
get him out of line
Mhm.
because it's holding him back.
Oh, without a doubt.
So,
Yeah.
all right, let's move on. I feel like we need to plug in Alpine right here
Mm-hmm.
because man, Pierre drove a fantastic race. And Ocon drove a strong race, but man, Pierre just looked great. And that was brutal the way it ended for both
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they are clearly the strongest out of the rest of the field. And I mean, they were nipping on they're nipping on the heels, man,
Mm-hmm.
of some of the front runners.
Yeah.
Given the right set of circumstances, it wouldn't surprise me to see one of them to challenge for a podium.
I mean, I think challenge for a podium.
I said, given the right set of
No,
circumstances.
I know. I mean, I think that's
look, a race like this.
it's
where
a very, very
you got one Ferrari
kinda
out?
messed up set of circumstances. You
Well,
know?
not really. Not really. I mean, look, you got one Ferrari out, you got one of the Mercedes drops out. Then you have Carlos gets cycled out with that red flag, the safety car to red flag. And all of a sudden, if you got a little bit more pace, you're right there fighting Fernando for third place.
Yeah, I mean,
this could have been the race.
I mean, look, a lot's got to happen for that possibility to be there, right? I mean, you've got Red Bull, Mercedes, Aston, Ferrari. So you got 8 drivers there. I think they've got a really large amount of good fortune that has to come their way to be fighting for the podium. Now, given the right track, given, I don't think they're far off, but I think it's got to be a pretty wild ride, to have them up there really fighting for a podium.
Well,
but I think I'll just say
what they showed
I
this
think
weekend,
they're in
I don't think it's that far of a stretch. Is all
I think
I'm
they're
saying.
in a good position if some shit really hits the fan up front. I'll say that.
Well, look, dude. Last year there wasn't a ton of that because the first half of the season you had Ferrari and you had Red Bull just leaving everybody else. And then for the most part, Red Bull just kind of ran away with it in the back half. But even still, for the most part, if they didn't have any issues, Ferrari was by themselves and then Mercedes was by themselves. And then there wasn't a whole lot of mix-up at all. This year, you've got Ferrari, Mercedes, and Aston that are all essentially really fighting for the same piece of asphalt.
Right.
So the likelihood of what we saw happen this weekend happening again is high throughout the course of 20 more races.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying every weekend, but will it happen 5 or 6 more times to where 2 of them get dropped? Probably, I would definitely put money on that.
Yeah.
I'd take the over.
So
and that's not even accounting for mechanical failures
mm-hmm.
or grid penalties or whatever,
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, if you're Alpine, like, there's plenty of opportunity here. And let's say, right, you've got two of them planning on bringing massive concept changing updates. Let's say one of them goes horribly wrong. All of a sudden, you're the fourth quickest team.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not wrong. At this point, man, nothing's off the table, right?
I'm just saying, like, they're not
they're not in a bad position,
right?
Like, not, by any means, they're not in a bad position.
Now you can't have what happened this weekend again,
right? So look, while we're on the topic of Alpine, because we're creeping up on 2 hours into this already, and I know we're gonna go for a little bit on this. Let's get on the topic of the bullshit that was the end of the race.
Okay.
Right.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So yet again, here we are talking about what the fuck are they doing is what it comes down to. Right. Because we had the first red flag after safety car, and that was a large clusterfuck of what are they doing. And here we are again at the end of the race. Now, look, I know the initial thought is we can't let it finish under a yellow flag. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Are all of us going to sit here and be a little upset? Well, of course. Mm-hmm. Duh. Like, yeah, we are. But you are going to...
They did it in Monza last year.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Yeah. But guess what?
Or 2 years ago.
That is racing. Like, everybody knows that is a possibility.
That was
Quit making it about the goddamn spectators and the show. Make it about the damn racing. That's what we want to see. And guess what? If you lose people because of that, well, then screw them.
They weren't really fans anyway.
Yeah, right. We want it to be about the racing. And if we are in it for the racing, we know just as well as the drivers do that finishing under a yellow, you know what? Sometimes shit happens. And that's just how it goes. But, dude, this restart, what was it? 3 laps left?
Yeah.
Was it? Like, what did you expect was going to happen?
I know. You put everybody on soft tires.
What did you think?
You got a red flag, so everybody goes to soft tires, and everybody's like, holy shit, the gap's gone.
Right.
I got an opportunity here.
Yeah. What did they really think was going to happen? Everybody was going to play it cautious?
Well, the commentators were calling it before it even happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like everybody was like, all right, y'all get ready. Y'all buckle up. Look, Paran was over here watching the race whenever we did it. I was like, get ready, bro. Mm-hmm. It's about to go down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then the commentators are like, all right, y'all buckle up, man. We're fixing to see some mayhem.
Shit's about to get real.
Like, I think they even asked Jensen, like, what do you think the chances are everybody gets through here unscathed? And he was like, none.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, it's right. And so here's the problem. They are so afraid of the backlash. Right. And look, this has all stemmed from Abu Dhabi 2 years ago. That's what this all stems from. They are so afraid of the backlash of everything and everybody.
That was the same problem. So obviously they didn't learn anything.
Well,
Massey wasn't a problem.
No, he was not.
Put a pin in that because we're going to circle back to that before we're done with this because I got some things to say about that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, but that's what everybody made it all about, right? That they just wanted to they didn't do things properly, right? And I don't see how this can be construed as anything different from that. If
Mhm.
you have a problem, if you really think that there was a problem with the end of Abu Dhabi as a FIA, or I'm not talking about a fan perspective, I'm talking about a F1 official or FIA official or somebody of that level in those positions, right?
Mhm.
If you found a problem with that, how in the hell do you not have a problem with what we saw in this race?
Mhm.
And this has nothing to do with fandom or who it worked out for or anything like that. In any of these situations, it's about, look, do I think did I want to see the end of Abu Dhabi finished away uh, under a yellow flag? Absolutely fucking not. I did not want that. But but if that was the way it should have happened, then fine. Sure, it sucks because what a great freaking season. We've had so much action and all that. For it to culminate like that, that would have sucked so hard. You know, I wasn't behind the scenes. I don't know. We got one lap of racing, but it wasn't a restart. It was one lap of racing on a restart from a safety car,
Yeah,
not
it was a
a
safety car restart, not a
yeah. It
standing
was not a
start.
standing restart. Could you imagine the last lap of the
Oh,
season
Jesus,
from a
dude.
standing restart?
We may not have had any cars finish.
Which, by the way, I've always been like since then. I've been very surprised that it did not happen
Mhm.
because that would have ensured that we finish under green.
Right.
Well, kind of.
Kind of.
It would have
Ish.
given it the chance to finish under green.
Yeah.
That would have ensured that they had the chance to finish under green.
Mhm.
Yeah, they sped things up and blah 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 whatever, but this was an absolute nightmare. This was way worse. Look, everybody's going to freak out when I say this. This was way worse than Abu Dhabi. Obviously, the consequence and the ramifications and what it all meant doesn't have the same effect. But the way it was handled was 10 times worse.
Mhm. I don't disagree with that at all. I don't. I mean, this was a complete shit show, and like I look, man. Normally, I think it's been made. I think I've made it pretty clear here. Like, normally, when these fucked up decisions are made, I can at least see what the thought process was, right? Like, and I can understand it, and although I may not agree with it, I can usually kind of see around it and see what the end goal was and what they were trying to achieve. Here, dude, I got nothing. Like I I don't get it. Not in the least. Not at all.
Dude, I don't know how we're in 2023 and we don't have a more efficient way to get cars off of a fucking circuit.
Right.
Like the amount of technology that is available to us on a day-to-day basis is staggering. And it's
Mhm.
evolving what seems like tenfold every freaking day. Like, have some kind of system in these awkward places where you have a picker that grabs that freaking car and just pulls it over the fence.
Hey, have we ever mentioned like that F1 is like at the forefront of technology and innovation and you know that
Yeah,
sort of
in the
thing?
cars,
Right. Right,
not the
right, right.
people that run the races.
Right. But you would think, with that being said, right, being the pinnacle of motorsports, the pinnacle, like top step.
I feel like they're trying to lose that,
They're doing a good job.
and it has nothing to do with the teams.
No. No, it has all to do with the management and the operation. Yeah. Just it's embarrassing to be honest. Like, top step of motorsports and this is the kind of shit that
Mhm.
we're talking about on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, whatever. Like this is never a topic that we should be talking about here.
Right.
It really is not. And yet here we are week in and week out talking about some dumb shit like this.
Well, like the crazy thing is when this shit goes down, after it goes down, nobody knows what the fuck is going to happen.
Mhm.
Because they're like, oh well, we gotta read the rules and then we gotta see how they're gonna apply them and this and that. It should be a cut and dry answer. Like this happens, here's what you do. This happens, here's what you do. How is
Yeah.
there so much questions of
Mhm.
what's supposed to happen? Like how do we do this? How do we do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Maybe you should have like a consistent panel of people making these decisions. And, yes, it all comes
Maybe the
it all
rule
comes
book
down.
needs to be rewritten to a much simpler context. Maybe it's evolved so much to a point where every everything has a B or a C or a D or E or a Z.
Yeah.
So maybe you just need a fresh start of bring it back to a point where the starting point is like before you get all these amendments, right? And like let's just roll it into some new smoother rules, man. Like Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Like, dude, so here's what I think of with what you just said. That remember the part in the new Top Gun movie where Maverick walks in and they realize he's their instructor and he pulls out the FA-18 NATOPS. I remember that's what he called it. I don't know what it stands for, but it's obviously like the manual of that plane, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
drops it in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we should do that. We should do that and just start over.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, look, quickly here. Look, I mean, Haas look good. Let's run through a couple of these. Haas
Mhm.
look decent. Hulk looked good. K-Mag kind of got screwed by that first pit stop red flag debacle. And like a Haas doesn't have the speed to make that up if
No.
something like that happens.
Mm-mm.
Hulk for a minute there, I thought he was going to be finishing P4.
Yeah. Right. No shit, huh?
But either way, man, like he looked pretty good. K Mag looked good. He just kind of got screwed. He got the shit end of a stick.
Mhm.
Alfa Romeo, Dude, they struggling. They look rough. I don't know. I mean, look, Joe finished in 9, but that was only because of the massive amount of DNFs from the front of the field.
Yeah.
I mean, you had
Gasly.
up to 13
Ocon.
was a DNF.
Yeah,
But you had both the Alpines, you had a Mercedes and a Ferrari all DNF'd.
Yeah. I mean, look, man.
And then you had Carlos demoted
Carlos finished
to
DFL.
the last finisher.
DFL in P12.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Alfa Romeo struggle bus.
Yep.
The funny thing is, like, let's see, Lando. I guess Piastri was the first one that got promoted into the points from all the last debacle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But either way, Haas looked okay. Alfa Romeo struggling. AlphaTauri, just ouch.
Mm-hmm.
And Williams, man, I don't think Logan Sargent got hardly any airtime.
Nope.
But so I really don't even know how he looked. But I mean, Albon, he caused the first red flag, but he was up in P6 when he did it.
Yeah. I mean, dude, he qualified, he started P8.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, Albon did some things with that Williams in qualifying. So kudos to him on that one.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, we know it's a fast car in a straight line. So, look, the next race is Baku.
Mm-hmm. Straight line.
He's going to be a problem there, dude, because that is a long freaking drag.
Yep. Indeed.
Jesus Christ, I can't. That Red Bull DRS, if Max even gets to open it, that thing is going to be a missile. You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
But, all right. I got to get something off my chest that's been eating at me.
Go for it.
Regarding Michael Massey.
Do it.
He was back in the paddock this weekend.
Yep.
And he is a part of one of the series that travels with F1 that runs on their race weekends, that fills the time for the people in the stands, that as race goers, we are much appreciative of. Otherwise, there wouldn't be shit to do for most of the time you're there.
Yep.
And you get to see a bunch of really cool cars, and it's always kind of something different, and they cycle it out to where hopefully this year we get to see maybe a little F2 in Austin, but we'll see. But either way, we saw a ton of really cool stuff while we were there. He's a part of one of the series that runs in conjunction with F1. That's why he was there. Ted Kravitz of Sky Sports needs to be removed from his fucking job. That dude is a piece of shit. Any chance he gets, he brings this shit back up and tries to make him look like a terrible human being, tries to resurface all of the things that people can barely get over now and try to get over it. And as soon as they're about to get over it, he rips the scab back off.
Mm-hmm.
as a commentator, it's one thing if you have your own like us. We can say whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
You work for the broadcast network for the international feed of the goddamn Formula One like racing series. What are you doing every chance you get showing your fanboyness for Mercedes? Like, that to me is disgusting. It's like when, and it has nothing to do with Mercedes. I had that feeling for anybody in that position that cannot stop their fandom, that cannot stop showing their fandom. As a commentator, you were supposed to be completely unbiased. That is why I couldn't stand for years when Troy Aikman would call a freaking Dallas Cowboys game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, insert former athlete, former football player when they get to call their old team's game. I hate it. I freaking hate it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but especially with this, because he's made so many comments in degradation to Max personally, to Red Bull personally. Like,
and then now this.
And then this. Dude, you should be done. How Sky Sports has not removed him, I do not know.
Well, I mean, look, we have seen it before. We've talked about it before. There is no doubt a bias from the commentators on a generalized level, right? And it shows.
But I think their bias is so
far exceeded any of that.
Look, I genuinely think that a natural bias comes out to the car that's dominating at the time. I hear it now in general with the way Red Bull is. You know, I hear you can listen to the commentators and tell the bias towards Red Bull. For years, it was the bias towards Mercedes. They could do no wrong, blah, blah, blah. Just like Red Bull now. They can do no wrong. There's nothing, they don't put a foot wrong. That just comes with the territory, but it's not a personal bias.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bias based on we know what's going to happen. And that's impossible to not show through, right? Like, for years, if the Patriots were to go to play the Browns, when Tom Brady was rolling, like the 07 Patriots with Randy Moss, you know, like, and they're going to play freaking Cleveland. We know what's going to happen. This is fixing to be a freaking curb stomp. And that bias is going to come out in the game through the commentators. It's just going to happen. Like, they're going to sit there and they're going to say how great Tom Brady is and how great Bill Belichick is and how great this and how great that. And the Patriots are the best thing to ever be assembled on a football field. And that's just part of it. And I'm fine with that aspect of, you know, just admiring the domination of what we see, of what's going on now. Because it's just part of it. And as somebody who has to talk about what's happening constantly for everybody who's watching, that's going to happen. But what Kravitz does is all personal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his personal feelings every chance he gets coming out and either demeaning Max or Red Bull or Michael Massey or propping Mercedes up or Lewis Hamilton up. And this has nothing to do with Mercedes or Lewis Hamilton because they have nothing to do with it. But his shit with that makes me sick.
Mm-hmm.
It's embarrassing for Sky that he's still there.
And I don't think there has been anything said regarding it from Sky, right?
I haven't seen it from
Yeah.
Sky.
Yeah.
I've seen a few things about on, some thread, some pages about like little stories about it, but that's it.
Yeah. But no, I don't think Sky has come out and said anything in regards to it.
It
Yeah.
just it just sucks, dude. Like you can't have that.
Yeah.
You
I
can't
mean
have
there
that as part of your broadcast.
yeah. And I mean, and look, there was and I have made it known how I'm not a fan of Crofty, but
I don't have a problem with
he
Crofty.
he did. I don't have a problem with him. I just
There's
get a
just little
little
things he does that
annoyed.
aggravate you,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a
yeah.
personal
No,
like.
no, no, no.
I think he
No. That's what I'm saying. Like
professionally, I think he does a fantastic job.
I have made it known that I'm just not a fan of him, and yeah, he just kind of annoys me a little bit. But he did he did do everything he could to kind of silence Ted Kravitz,
He did.
right?
I agree.
And I give him a lot of credit for that and recognizing what was happening and doing what he could to just get out of that and move on, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was absolutely uncalled for and completely ridiculous. You know, I look, if you are going to chastise Massey for his calls, shit, chast why is Ted Kravitz not being chastised for his? You
Hmm.
know, like it's completely ridiculous. You know, the fact that Massey is still receiving this kind of treatment and the fact that people cannot look at it, and I don't want to go back down this rabbit hole, but it just still blows my mind that people cannot look at that objectively to this day, right?
Hmm.
Like it's so far in the past in F1 terms, it's so far in the past at this point, and people can still not look at it objectively and still hold such a freaking grudge is just ridiculous.
Well, listen up. How about this, Kravitz? Don't ever mention it again. We'll call it even because obviously you still want something to be done about it from 2021. So let's give Lewis that one and let's remove 2008. So either way, he's still sitting at 7
Yeah, right.
because obviously there was another human error that was made back in 2008
Mm-hmm.
that has been brought to the forefront of the media's attention now, in which Bernie and Max Mosley knew about this, had all the information needed before the time in which they couldn't do anything about it, and chose to
Just
sweep it
ignore
under
it.
the rug and just not say anything.
Yeah, I
Because we
haven't
didn't
heard
want a
Ted.
scandal.
I haven't heard Ted say anything about this.
Right. So, had that happened, Felipe Massa would have been world champion
Mm-hmm.
because it would not have been, despite what some people are saying, it would not have been just the Renaults being DQ'd. It would have been a disqualification of the entire results. It would have been like that race never happened.
Yep.
They would have just thrown out the results to that entire race. And Felipe Massa would have been world champion regardless of what happened in Brazil. I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But, you know,
Yeah, that has. Yeah, so that has come to light.
so call it even
Obviously,
10.
we are recording this about a week late now,
Yeah.
due to some technical issues, which we do apologize for, but nonetheless, it has allowed us to have a little bit of extra info that we would not have had we recorded our normal Monday nights right after the race, such as a report of Bernie Ecclestone supposedly admitting that he had said information about Crashgate and chose to just not do anything about it. So that is very much in the limelight right now. And
To be honest, nothing's going to happen with it.
it's not.
They're not going to take the title from Lewis.
No,
They're not going to
not.
give the title to Felipe.
Mm-mm.
They're, the thing that I feel the worst about is Felipe Massa got screwed out of a lifetime of being a world champion.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the financial implications that would have had on his life. And look, I mean, we all know, I'm sure he's done very well. But the amount that he would have made being able to market himself for the rest of his life as a world champion would have been staggering.
Yes.
Compared to what he was currently able to do. Yep. He would have had endorsement deals out the ass for, 5 to 10 years after his championship, and probably forever in Brazil until there's another Brazilian world champion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he's the biggest loser out of it. He was at the time and he still is now. But if nothing else comes of it, the fact that Bernie Ecclestone had either the balls or is losing his mind enough to have admitted this in public in an interview, Felipe Massa should sue the living shit out of whoever he can and recoup some of that freaking money.
Right.
And that should be the end of it.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to go back. It's 15 years ago.
No, I mean, as far as the sporting codes go and as far as all of that goes, right, that's not going to get overturned.
Although they did.
There are enough. I was doing a little bit of
take Lance Armstrong's name out of all the books.
Right. There are enough rules written within the FIA and other alphabet things, IAC, XYZ, ABC, 1, 2, 3, different things within Formula One and the FIA, and legal things and sporting things and governing body things, and it got a little confusing, but basically it states that after the trophy presentation, there is nothing that can be done. Even if you take it to like the legal side, there's still like
the trophy protection. For the year. Clarify that. The trophy for the year.
Yes. There's like all kind of protection within that on the legal side of things. And unless there's some kind of loophole that Felipe Massa's lawyer could possibly find, nothing there is going to change. He's not going to get awarded the World Championship trophy. And
honestly, I think Lewis. It's more about just making it known.
Yes.
What they did.
Yes. Yes. And that's what he has said.
But, dude, if I'm him, I think everybody kind of already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say that everybody who was watching F1 at the time already knew that.
Yes. Yes.
And if I'm him, I'm pissed off about the money.
Mm-hmm.
Not for me, because I don't think it changes what he could do in his life, but I think it changes what he could have been able to set his family up. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about some
Although,
serious
yeah,
generational kind of wealth.
yeah. But I mean, there was a quote by him that this was not financially driven.
No,
This
I
was
know
just,
that's, but I'm saying like,
yeah, no, I know, I know. I'm just putting it out there like that. He did say this was not financially driven. This was, and this isn't quoted because I'm not going to say this exactly how he did, but it was essentially that this was just about him bringing this up and bringing this to a legal aspect was about making it known and making right what was wronged, you know,
mhm,
and so essentially so that it doesn't happen again, more or less.
mhm,
Um, but this is freaking huge, man. Like it, for for Bernie to have admitted this, and you
what,
know,
like,
I
what in the
haven't
hell?
I haven't seen like a video or seen many quotes of like a recording or any of that. I haven't dived too deep into searching for it, but any
Why would he
reporter,
do it?
worth his salt records everything. So for any reporter to come out and say that this was said by Bernie, like he has got to have a recording of it of some sort.
Mhm.
Like he's not just going to come out and say this and be like, well, I mean, he told me this on the phone, but I didn't have it recorded, right? Like he can't be that stupid
Right.
to not have proof of it. And yeah, I mean, maybe Bernie is just losing his mind enough, right? And maybe that's what his loyal lawyers will argue. Well, he's suffering from some early signs of dementia or some shit, right? But
Right.
dude, I mean, this is huge.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned it before. I've said the name, and for those of y'all that have heard it and want to know more about it, you can read the book. It's a little bit confusing, but look, man, that was the Piranha Club, and it's I for
Unfortunately, it's not on available in an audiobook, which I feel like would have made it a lot better, but maybe nobody wanted to read that fucking thing
yeah,
on tape and
yeah,
be recorded. But because I've looked for it, I haven't read it.
yeah.
I want to, but
I'll tell you, it's a very hard read.
do you have it still, or is it dad's?
Yeah, no, I have it.
Send me that bitch. I'm gonna make myself read it.
All right.
On a completely separate note, something of interest that I just kind of noticed and looked at in terms of how we were talking about like Ferrari tires not falling off a cliff and all that. Carlos Sainz set his fastest lap of the race on the last lap of the race. Well, the last racing lap of the race.
Yeah, yeah. Very big
Um,
difference.
or at least the last lap that everybody was trying to set fast laps.
hmm
Lap 53, the same lap that Checo Perez set the fastest lap of the race in like total, and was only 2/10 behind the Red Bull on his tires, which were what, 40 laps old?
Yep.
Maybe even more than that. Maybe 45. I don't know if they changed Carlos's tires at that red flag
Let's see.
because
Hold on.
they had just. Well, no, he would have had some. He would have had no. It was
Yeah, they
lap
did.
8.
They changed them.
Not at the red flag. They wouldn't have had another brand new set of hards. So that would have been the one at the safety car. So he would have had just like a little bit of warm up on it and then back into the pits. So yeah, I mean, either way, I think that right there shows some pretty significant strides that would not have been possible a couple weeks ago, a couple races ago.
Yeah.
The fact that he was able to outpace, and even like throughout the race, when he was working his way through the field, like while he was in between cars, when he was chasing them down, Max was still in attack at that time. Max was still in attack mode. He was pacing. He was the only car in the field that was pacing with Max. If you remember, I don't know if you caught that or not.
Yeah, I did.
So, look, maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel for this year to have some interesting stuff. It just didn't work out this week where we got to see it. You know, I'm not saying that they would have beat the Red Bulls by any stretch of the imagination, but hell, it's positive thoughts going forward.
Yeah.
You know, that we might have some competition here. And it was only a 10th slower than Max's fastest lap of the race. That was only set 2 laps earlier.
Yeah, so maybe there's some light.
Here's to somebody freaking catching and making it interesting that when we go into a weekend, we don't automatically assume, all right, well, Red Bull's got it. Who's in third?
Yeah.
Because at this point, there's really no point in doing a prediction for the race.
No, there's not. There really isn't.
So let's pick the third place. Let's pick the not Red Bull podium. Where not necessarily third, but let's pick the not Red Bull podium. Do we? I feel like Charles is due
I
some
was thinking
good
the
luck.
same thing. Yeah.
I really do. I feel like he's going to be out with a vengeance this weekend. Well, in a fucking month whenever the race happens.
Yep. April 30th.
Yeah. I feel like he's going to be out for blood. And he's been quick, man, at Baku. He should have had his first win ever at Baku. And Seb screwed him out of that. Seb pulled the old politicking card out of his back pocket that Charles didn't know existed.
Yep.
And pull one over on him. And that was about the last time that ever happened. But
all right, so who are you picking for your not Red Bull podium?
I feel like Alonso's luck has got to run out. You got to have both the Red Bulls on there unless something kind of out of the blue happens. But man, like, it's kind of a toss-up between the Mercedes Astons and the Ferraris.
Yeah, it is.
No, I shouldn't say that. It's a toss-up between the Mercedes, the Ferraris, and Alonso. Lance has not been really in that fight.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, you're right there. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say Alonzo's luck runs out. It's not him. Can I pick two? I feel like we should be able to pick two. I'm gonna say Russell or Charles is the third out of the podium. Russell's going to be pissed because of what happened this past week when he feels like he had a shot at the win, which I feel like he legitimately did, had the red flag bullshit not completely screwed him.
Mm-hmm.
The first red flag.
So you're going Russell or Leclerc. I'm going Alonso or Leclerc. I agree. I think Leclerc is due.
Fernando's luck runs out, bro.
Part of me agrees with that. Part of me doesn't. So I'm going to throw him in the mix. So, all right. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. I think P3 on the podium could be an interesting battle. We'll just say that. So yeah, Baku is next, April 30th. So we've got a little ways before then. But McLaren's supposed to have some upgrades, and we'll see who else is able to piece some things together and maybe bring a little more fight. But we know what's going to happen at the pointy end, and we'll just see what happens behind them. But
and who knows what happens in between?
Yeah.
So in between now and when that next race comes, so
right.
we may be back beforehand. We may not. It's kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah. If there's some big, shit hitting the fan type stuff, then we will. If not, it'll be post Baku. So, how about you? But I think we'll call this one a wrap.
Also, real quick, shout out to the LSU women's basketball team, national fucking champions for 2023.
No, you're happy to
everybody
say
that everybody that's hating on Kim Mulkey can suck it. Everybody that's hating on Angel Reese right now can double suck it. Sports is about talking shit. Everybody talks shit. It happens all the time. So when somebody does it and you don't like it, get over it.
Just be better.
It happens to the best of them. Every athlete talks shit, even the ones that you never hear. They do it. And guess what? Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and it's part of it.
Can I get an amen?
So I just had to get that in there, man. It's been driving me freaking. It's been just irking at me.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, I'm gonna leave y'all with a little excerpt here. And this was said by the one we were talking about earlier, Mr. David Crofty. And to be honest with you, I want to say it was in Q3 he said it. It was one of those things, man. I heard him say it, and it was like, oh man, for all the shit that I kind of give Crofty for being annoying and his pointless stats and whatnot, it was like a slip up moment for him here, right? Like he always has some just weird thing about everything, right? Some weird stat or just some weird comparison. And it was in reference to the Williams. And I don't remember exactly. Was it like in sector 3 when it was Albon was lighting up a purple sector or something like that? But in the words of Mr. Crofty, well, Well, that car is just as slippery as a slippery thing. And dude, like I heard
really
him
what he
say,
said?
yeah, I
I
heard him
missed
say
that.
that, and I was like, oh man, he was searching. He went into that one and had no way out of it,
Right.
and that
He
was
just
just
had he couldn't
hilarious.
bail. It was too
Yeah,
late to bail. You just had
yeah.
to
And as soon as you said it, I was like, you know what? That's gonna be it. That just made my quote.
poor Crofty.
So, with that being said, we will call it a
Normally, I'll
night.
tell you what though, normally in those situations, he's pretty freaking sharp. Like
He's
that's
normally
one thing
got
you got to
something up
give
his
him
sleeve.
credit for. Like
Yeah,
in just those off the cuff situations when it calls for like just
like some
a
kind of quip.
random like
Yeah,
quick little just like jab like that.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
normally on point, man. Like that one last year in Austria when he's like, "And 3 become 5." Like it was
yeah.
just so clean and seamless and perfect, right?
Yep. Well, and that's why this one kind of caught me, right? Like I
Yeah.
heard him, I heard him go, that car is as slippery as a, and I was waiting for it, man. I was waiting for like something
Right.
brilliant almost, you know?
Right.
And it just didn't come. And I was like, you know what, Crofty, you just made it. You just made my quote.
Mm-mm.
So, all right. Well, 2.5 hours later, we appreciate y'all sticking around with us. This has been a fun one. There's a lot to digest here after the
Felt like just a lot of
cluster.
felt like a lot of shit talking directed towards a small group, a small amount of people
Yeah.
and bitching.
Yes. Yes.
That's pretty
There was
much what this podcast was.
more or less. It was. But all right. So we will see y'all at the moment. We will see y'all after Baku, unless something changes drastically in the meantime. And we'll throw one out there for you. So you'll just have to keep an eye out. But we appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and we will catch y'all on the next one.
See you.
Later.